Agrenosha Accordia is Misha Paula Cunigon. It's my great pleasure to welcome you back to the first e-government session, which is focused on issues and case studies. We have presentations from South Africa, Kenya, and Namibia. And I hope that you'll enjoy these sessions and actively engage with the speakers with your questions and answers. I would invite you to use the chat function to share your questions, and then we'll call on people, hopefully in the order in which we receive your question.
My name is Keneilwe Maremi, and I work for the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR in South Africa. The title of my presentation is The Benefits of Digital Transformation, Addressing the Hindrances and Challenges of E-Government Services in South Africa, and this was a scoping review. The government of South Africa intends to digitize their services and move from traditional government to e-government. However, many challenges and hindrances needs to be addressed before e-government can become a reality. Despite progress in e-government made by the South African government in the past few years, the e-government sector is still lagging in creating a completely digital government. Therefore, the research question of this paper is, how can the benefits of DT address the challenges and hindrances of e-government in South Africa? This paper aims to explain how the successful implementation of digital transformation can help address the challenges and hindrances that arise with e-government in South Africa. Successfully implementing digital transformation can potentially help the government to solve all the issues relating to service delivery. This paper was developed according to a scoping review because the researchers intended to examine the benefits of digital transformation in government, as opposed to a systematic review, which is a form of research synthesis conducted by expert groups that identifies and assembles international evidence relevant to a particular question. Databases that were applied are IEEE Explore, Scopus, and Science Direct. In addition to that, Hazings published and Google search engines were used. The inclusion criteria included articles that discussed e-government and digital transformation, articles written in English, and articles relevant to the search. The exclusion criteria included irrelevant articles to the study, non-English articles, and any duplicates that were found. Following the screening process, 100 remaining eligible papers were identified, 80 papers were excluded, and 20 were considered eligible for the study. The scoping review was also supported by a study that was conducted at 12 prioritized South African government departments to determine hindrances when implementing e-government. The scoping review identified the following benefits of digital transformation. High annual growth. This can be done by automating tasks and enhancing information flows within an organization. It also increases public trust by responding more quickly to public needs and forming stronger relationships. Another benefit of digital transformation is modern infrastructures and smart cities. This can be done through digital technologies where the government can interact directly with the community and monitor what is happening within the city and observe how it is developing. It also increases scalability and flexibility, whereby the government can move away from restrictive legacy systems to implement more scalable alternatives. And this ties to the current e-Native licensing systems in South Africa, which is designed for registering, storing, recording, managing, and enforcing of data. And the documentation is generated by the implementation of the National Road Traffic Act and the National Road Traffic Regulation. In Gauteng, the online booking system was introduced in 2018 to make things more easier and efficient and to cut down on corruption. However, it has not succeeded due to corruption and continued system failures. Another benefit is enhanced reliability and reduced risks. This focuses on modernizing tools which will create a larger pool of candidates with the right experience to support the government adequately and reducing failures and cyber criminals. It also improves decision making by deepening data analysis. It increases competitive advantage and eliminates tasks that unnecessarily waste staff time by using softwares that can replace manual tasks. It also encourages collaboration across departments by creating communication channels between the departments, which makes information more accessible. It increases agility and innovation. The government will be able to continuously improve and develop quickly, which will enable it to anticipate any disruption. Lastly, it improves productivity and performance. Furthermore, the scoping review identified the hindrances of e-government against the benefit of digital transformation. If you look at the left side of the table, it shows the hindrances of e-government. And the first one is the lack of coordination between the government's departments when it comes to digital transformation. And this can be mitigated by the benefit of digital transformation that encourages collaboration across departments. Another hindrance of e-government is inefficiency, redundant processes, incompatible databases, and a large-scale incompatibilities that are the main barriers of e-government adoption. An example of that would be the current e-Native licensing system, Home Affairs systems, and the absence of electronic healthcare records in South Africa. And this can be mitigated by the benefit of digital transformation that increases scalability and flexibility, eliminates tasks that unnecessarily waste staff time, and improves productivity and performance. South Africa does not have a separate budget for e-government implementations. As a result, several initiatives still operate under separate budget. This hindrance can be mitigated by the benefit of digital transformation because it is forecasted to have high annual growth and fast penetration. At present, some government departments utilize a variety of applications, platforms, softwares, and databases. And this hindrance can be mitigated by the benefit of digital transformation that manages and maintains the digital communication infrastructure, ensuring accessibility, quality, and affordability. Government can develop programs that detect threats and prevent attacks through digital technology. Even though DT has many benefits for e-government, there are several factors that affect its success for implementation. The following factors slows down digital transformation: insufficient recognition of DT's values to society, and insufficient or overly heterogeneous organizational structure or culture. DT strategies and return on investment visibility are lacking. There is a perception that existing businesses are being cannibalized. An insufficient number of skilled and qualified workers, insufficient or non-existent infrastructure, regulation and consumer protection are lacking or inadequate. Small and medium-sized businesses have limited access to funding, anxiety about acceptance or transparency, conflict of interest, loss of employment is also a concern, no clear vision or strategy, and lastly, resistance to change. In conclusion, DT offers many solutions to e-government services as it addresses most of the challenges in e-government. There may be difficulties with the implementation of DT, but hopefully the highlighted benefit of DT against the hindrances and challenges of e-government will assist in the successful implementation of South African e-government initiatives. With advances in digital technologies, the South African government might successfully address its challenges to realize its global digital strategy successfully. I thank you for your time. Greetings, my name.
Thanks very much, Keneilwe. Just to start off questions, and please, if you have any questions, can you please share them in chat with your name, institution, and country so I can call on you. One of the key lessons learned from previous industrial revolutions has been the negative impact on the workforce who didn't have the necessary capacity or skills for the work, and you've alluded to this yourself. So what do you perceive as some of the opportunities and challenges for governmental institutions across Africa interested in applying some of the insights shared through your presentation?
Thank you so much for the questions. Can you please repeat it? I think I missed.
Of course. Can you turn up your volume? I can hear you very quietly. So one of the key lessons learned from previous industrial revolutions has been the negative impact on the workforce who did not have the necessary skills and capacity to take advantage of the new opportunities that you and Dan both referred to. So what do you perceive as some of the opportunities and challenges for governmental institutions across Africa interested in applying some of the insights shared through your presentation?
Thank you so much. I will try my level best to answer your question. If I understand you correctly, the benefits that, or the opportunities that government might pursue from my side, specifically when you look at the rural areas where they are resource constrained and there isn't a lot of technology or the know of how to actually use this technology platforms. I think that's when they can reach out to the communities, just go strictly to rural areas and teach the old people that are not technology advanced. And this does not only focus only on old people. I think majority of people in the rural areas are resource constrained, and you'll find that even the youth doesn't really know on how to adapt to those technologies. So I think if the government might introduce trainings programs that are exciting to teach them from a lower base area so that they learn on how to adapt and slowly introduce them to knowing how to respond to this technology. The reason I'm saying this is that I'm not from a rural area, but I am from a township. And for me, I first started using a laptop when I went to tertiary. And unfortunately, it's not everybody that has the luxury of being in tertiary institutions because of lack of fundings, even though there are NSFAS, initiatives that are put, or platforms that are put in place to assist people in the rural areas to get education and further this education. It goes back to communication in terms of digital technology, because in those specific areas, they don't even know about this NSFAS or how to even apply for it so that they can have free education. And this attests the most to the importance of digital transformation and training people so that they are aware of what has been offered, but mostly how they're going to utilize what has been offered by the South African government. Going back to my story, I was new in terms of using this laptop, and going to university was the first time that I had to do it. And unfortunately, I chose a course in IT, which meant that it's a requirement for me to know the technology aspects. And it was the first time navigating a laptop. I didn't know how to switch it on. I kept on thinking the mouth is disappearing because the opportunities were not reached out to me, and my parents were not in a situation where they could buy me a laptop while I was still young. So I would think that it's very important for the government to reach out to resource constrained areas. And also in terms of opportunities, I would say digital transformation increases the digital divide gaps in rural areas. It bridges all the digital divide in rural areas. Also, I can say I'm hoping that I am answering your question, but I'm also thinking that, when I was doing the presentation itself and while I was doing research, I've seen that majority are neglected in terms of adapting or going with technology. Change is a problem majority of the time. And I think this also ties to the lack of skills. When a person is not comfortable with what they are being given, they have a fear of, will this technology now take my job, because they do not know. I think knowledge is power, and government can utilize a lot in terms of training as much people as possible. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Keneilwe before we move on to John's presentation? In which case, thank you very much. And I'll bring up John's presentation now. So our next presentation is from John from the University of Nairobi, who's going to discuss evaluating the impact of e-government initiatives on citizens, empowerment or tokenism. So I think this will build on the previous presentation.
This study is about evaluating the impact of e-government initiatives on citizens, empowerment or tokenism. I'm John Oredo from the University of Nairobi, Kenya. The gist of this study is that governments all over the world, and especially in Africa, have been employing e-government initiatives to help them manage public service. The question this study wants to answer is whether these e-government initiatives really empower the citizens. Because the digital technologies driving the public sector automation could be employed either to intensify or minimize the existing power asymmetries between the civil service bureaucrats and the citizens. The objectives of this study, therefore, are: one, to review selected e-government digital platforms as case studies; two, to evaluate the extent to which the e-government digital platforms empower the citizens. We have reviewed related work, basically on foundations of e-government, and two ways of looking at e-government emerge. That is, e-government as capacity to transform public administration through the use of ICTs, and e-government as the use of ICTs by the government. We also look at some of the commonly used e-government maturity frameworks, and generally they have 4 stages, that is digitization, transformation, electronic governance, and contextualization. In Kenya, e-government was launched in 2004 as a way of realizing the Vision 2030. In the Vision 2030, ICTs are expected to be catalysts to enhance public sector operations, citizen engagement, participation in government. The government services for the citizens include the eCitizen portal, transport integrated management systems, GRIDI, iTax, ADISASA, and other e-government platforms operated by government agencies. We also reviewed literature on e-government evaluation, and 2 streams emerged. That is the supply side evaluation, which emphasized the delivery of services by the government, and the demand side evaluation that emphasizes the relationship between government and citizens through the e-services. In this study, we adopted the demand side evaluation, and demand side evaluation models applied in extant literature include information systems success model, balanced scorecard, e-government readiness index, and expectancy disconfirmation model. To that extent, the current study aims at evaluating e-government initiatives in Kenya through the lens of the Einstein's ladder of citizen participation. This is a model that is used to evaluate the different stages through which an e-government platform empower citizens, starting from non-participation, tokenism, up to citizen power. Under non-participation, there could be e-government platforms, but they are mainly used to enhance internal government operations and has little to do with the citizens. In tokenism, mostly the e-government platforms are used for informing the citizens, giving the citizens information, again, with very little interaction between these platforms and the citizen. The recommended stage of e-government engagement with citizens is what Einstein called the power stage, where citizens are seen as partners. And at this stage, the e-government platforms are expected to engage citizens robustly and enable them to participate in public service decisions and policy making processes through active participation, what we call e-participation. The research method used here is a descriptive case study, and we selected 3 e-government platforms that were initiated by the Kenyan government. These e-government platforms selected included the Transport Information Management Systems, Higher Education Load Boards, and iTax by the Kenya Revenue Authority. An evaluation of the case studies was conducted through the use of questionnaires. So the case e-government platforms selected, as we have said, are the Transport Information Management System, the Higher Education Loan Board, and the iTax. The data was collected from students, postgraduate and undergraduate in a Kenyan university. 120 questionnaires were sent out, or links were sent to 120 students. Out of this 120, a total of 102 returned the questionnaires. Results. The first result is a descriptive statistic of the use of e-government platforms, where we see that iTax scored the highest with 32% of the respondents saying that they use the iTax platform, followed by eCitizen and the others. In terms of platforms extensively used, 33% for iTax and 37% for eCitizen. The 37% for eCitizen could be explained by the fact that eCitizen is a portal through which citizens or users can access other government-related platforms, and therefore it's like the starting point. We also now, using Einstein's ladder, compared each of the e-government platforms in terms of the extent to which they empower citizens. So we look at iTax, Teams, Help, and eCitizen. Now, the blue bar represents non-participation. The yellowish bar or orange bar represents tokenism, and the gray bar represents empowerment. So generally from this, it is clear that most of these e-government platforms still score poorly in terms of empowering the citizens. They score fairly well in terms of tokenism, which means they are basically used for providing information to the citizens, and probably with the little interaction in terms of citizens uploading required documents or conducting some transactions, but without robustly engaging the citizens in terms of policy decision-making processes or e-participation, active e-participation. Aggregately, we see that tokenism scores high, 3.1 in a scale of 1 to 5, followed by non-participation, 3.07, and then empowerment. Since our interest was the extent to which these e-government platforms empower citizens, we still see that there is still a bit that needs to be done in these e-government platforms to completely empower the citizens, as it is still at the lowest level. In terms of conclusion, we can say that these e-government platforms still score highly on non-participation, which means that most of them are just still used for passing information to citizens rather than engaging citizens robustly. At the level of non-participation, citizens are only provided with the information emanating from the government. In terms of e-government maturity models, non-participation is equivalent to digitalization, catalog, cultivation, and information. This is the lowest rank in most of the maturity models. So at this stage, government websites exist mainly to provide information. Now, some of these e-government platforms have a contact us facility, which gives the impression that they are engaging the citizens. But most of the comments or questions asked by citizens to these facilities do not actually get any feedback, which means they're just there to give an impression of engagement, but in the real sense, there is no engagement. So the highest level of citizen participation in the Asten's ladder is citizen power. So at this level, we expect that power is redistributed through negotiations between citizens and power holders. So all the case platforms scored lowest in this case. So according to the users, the government platforms lacked tools and functionalities considered to facilitate involvement in public decision-making. According to McIntosh, tools such as webcasts, blogs, opinion polls, chat rooms, discussion forums, virtual communities, and alert services should be used to enhance e-participation. So we realize that most of these e-government platforms still lack these facilities, which can be used to robustly engage the citizens. Even though the Constitution of Kenya 2010 in Article 10 demands public participation in public policy decisions, features to enable e-participation are not yet fully implemented in various e-government platforms. Lastly, some of the limitations of this study is that there is no single measurement scale for this IST ladder of citizen participation. And therefore, the scale we used was adopted from disparate sources, different sources. And future studies could look into developing a robust scale for measuring the IST's ladder of citizen participation. Again, this study was cross-sectional. Future studies could employ a longitudinal approach. Thank you very much. That is the end of this presentation.
Thanks, John, for your interesting presentation. I think most people would agree that your basic premise is correct, that for many governments, it's primarily about information sharing with some level of interactivity, but e-participation is still pretty far away. At the same time, there is obviously a value of information sharing if it makes it possible for people not to have to travel to queue up to find information that they could get online. At the same time, the real value, I think most people would agree, of public service delivery is to ensure that the services available are more useful to citizens, can help them in terms of efficiency, and are also designed in such a way that public service delivery can be scaled so that you don't have to increase the people while providing a good level of service. So what do you see as some of the key barriers to having that greater level of interactivity that you were talking about, let alone scaling or aspiring to the e-participation? And are there any low-hanging fruit that you can help us identify that not just in your own country, but other countries people could consider? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question and listening to my presentation. I think, as you have rightly said, providing information is very important for the citizens. And actually, when citizens are well informed, which means they get government information in a manner that is accurate and timely, then of course they are able to make good decisions. And in one way or the other, they are able to participate in a small way in public decision making. I think the instance ladder is a bit ambitious in terms of the extent in which we expect these platforms to engage the citizens. Actually, the instance ladder was developed in the context of city planning in the 1960s. And it was to help in determining the extent to which the planning authorities were involving citizens in the planning. And therefore, we just wanted to customize it to the needs of e-government implementation. And probably this is just the beginning of a bigger research in doing this. But I think, as you asked, one of the barriers probably is that the governments are not really yet involving citizens in the process of designing these platforms. So I think one of the barriers is that citizen participation at the design and development level is still lacking, not just at the use level, because I believe that if the citizens are engaged at the analysis and the design levels, then some of this will be factored in. But again, we have to accept that most governments, especially in Africa, are still at the early stages of using technologies to transform governments, just like the earlier presentation alluded to. And by the fact that they have reached almost the second run is something to applaud. And we hope that the governments will continue until they reach the highest level where the citizens feel that they can robustly use these government platforms to engage the government more actively. I think another barrier could be resources on the government side, because some of these tools to implement them, of course, require financial resources, technology resources, and a lot more resources. Another barrier could go back to what was mentioned in the previous presentation, and I think you also asked about it in terms of training. Some of the facilities available in these platforms already are not adequately used by citizens, probably because they are not well conversant with these facilities, or they have not properly been engaged in terms of training to make use of these functionalities. And therefore, this goes into, again, the awareness that the government creates about these available platforms. They need probably to increase awareness and find better ways of educating citizens on how to adequately and effectively use the facilities that are already available in these platforms. And I think the governments can also motivate the students, the citizens, by being a bit proactive in terms of a timely response to citizen questions from citizens or comments from citizens. As I said, some of these platforms have contact us or some kind of comment functionalities, but you rarely get any feedback from the government when such are made. So I think generally there are first steps, but there are still room for improvement. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. I'd like to call on my colleague, Maxwell Oldham from the Uganda National Council for Science, Technology and the Ministry to ask his question in relation to citizen empowerment. Maxwell?
I think I see some question on the chat.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll read the question. I was giving
Yes.
Maxwell the opportunity. Oh,
Sorry,
Maxwell, you're there.
I didn't realize I was muted. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, I was just saying thank you, Paul, and thank you, John, for the presentation. I was looking at the hierarchy of empowerment and using the 3 indices that you've indicated, and you concluded that citizen empowerment, which is supposed to be really the apex that you aim at, is still extremely low. It is still very low in Kenya. And I was wondering if from your analysis, you have suggestions how this can be improved, because I think it would be a good lesson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maxwell, for that question. I think one way in the presentation, we mentioned some of the functionalities that could be added into those platforms so that they engage, they have facilities for engaging citizens. But that is not enough. Just as I've said that, if you look at some of these e-government platforms, there are facilities that are never used. And sometimes citizens just run to these platforms because there's a demand. Like I know in June, we will be asked in Kenya to fill our tax returns. And therefore you will see people now rushing to the iTax portal to do that. And then after that, they forget about it, and probably there are other functionalities within that platform that could be used on a continuous basis. But people don't use them. So awareness again is important. Creating awareness is very important so that the citizens are aware that such tools exist. The citizens are informed on how they can use these tools. So that is also important. Apart from the technology, the soft side is also important, of just making citizens, or wananchi, as we call them here in Kenya, aware. And probably the government could use the local, we have county governments, local governments. This training or awareness would be cascaded down up to the lowest level community centers where people are sensitized on these platforms. But as I said, it's just a kind of a research project we've started, and probably with time, as we do more studies, we'll be able to come up with a complete framework of what needs to be in these platforms, not only the technology, but also the soft side for them to be adequately used by citizens and to empower them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Maxwell, for the question. And we have another question from Ambrose Oteem. Ambrose, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, the presenter. My name is Ambrose Oteem from Uganda. I work with Atomic Energy Council. My question goes to the presenter. In regards to e-government, a number of African countries, especially East African countries, face a lot of challenges in implementing e-government. So my question is, what are the major challenges Kenyan government and also the citizens have faced in implementing, adopting governments?
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Ambrose, the connection seemed very slow, but John, did you see the question in chat?
Yes, I can see. The question is basically about the challenges that governments face while trying to implement e-governments, and probably how to overcome these challenges. I would say that in the Kenyan context, the government has made huge strides in trying to transform the public sector through the use of e-government platforms. And in some cases, the government has insisted that certain services can only be accessed through these platforms. And but still, there are challenges. I may not be aware about specific challenges in different countries in Africa, but maybe I could highlight some of the challenges in Kenya, and probably this could also apply to other African countries. I think one of the challenges is just the case of digital divide as we know it, that all the citizens do not have equal access to these digital technologies. The devices and connectivity is still not uniformly distributed, so to speak, across the country or even across Africa. So we are still having cases of the digital haves and the digital have-nots. And that is a big challenge that governments are trying to deal with. The Kenyan government is trying to deal with that by trying to connect different parts of the country through very deliberate strategies. And again, as has already been mentioned, awareness is very important, and of course, training of citizens, and of course, making these technologies user-friendly or citizen-friendly. Our large populations of Kenya and actually Africa probably may still not be very comfortable accessing resources through websites, etc. So I think as governments put in effort, some of these challenges will be overcome. Like I would say in Kenya, we have actually made very huge strides towards this effort. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So our last question, unfortunately, that we can fit with the time we have is from Fesiha. So Fesiha, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for a good presentation. And I just want to highlight one important point that we have been realizing now at the CSIR, which will be also presented tomorrow in one of the sessions at the IST-Africa. I think it's very important that we involve local digital businesses to be responsible for some of the e-government infrastructure, and also provide ICT services towards the rural population. We have found out that some of the digital entrepreneurs that are there, they are very much capable of providing those services, plus also maintain. One of the biggest problems that we have in ICT infrastructure deployment in Africa is that we just throw those networks and then we think that they will survive by themselves. Somebody has to maintain and regularly, develop the new services that are coming, but we are not doing that. So I think the most important challenge that we have now is how do we empower these local digital businesses to make a living out of it, at the same time also maintain those networks, digital infrastructure and digital transformation of rural areas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I agree with you. And something has just come into my mind, that one way of through which in Kenya we are trying to deal with the digital divide is that the regulator, the Communications Authority of Kenya, I think a few months ago, has been working on what are called some standards for community-based networks, especially to bridge the gap in terms of internet connectivity. And for sure, I agree with you, we should contextualize these technologies. We should localize them. We should let them have the feel of the African continent, what we associate with and understand quickly. So I agree with you also on that, and probably use our local expertise, our local talents to develop these technologies. I agree with you that you still find that governments are outsourcing development of these platforms to multinationals or big corporations operating out of Africa, while probably these technologies or expertise could easily be available. Thank you.
John, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the question. NJ, if you don't mind, I'll take your question and I'll ask it later, if that's okay. Just we're running out of time for this session. So I'm just going to share NJ's question in the chat, and hopefully we'll pick it up later. So our next presenter is Esther, and she's going to discuss leveraging technology to enhance effective electronic policing in developing countries. And we'll take any other questions and we'll try to do them at the end of Esther's presentation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Esther. I'm an honors graduate from Namibia University of Science and Technology. Namibia is situated in the southern part of Africa. It's bordering with South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Angola. The work that I'm presenting is titled Leveraging Technology to Enhance Effective Electronic Policing in Developing Countries. The work is co-authored by 3 associates, Dr. Jude Osakwe, Dr. Gloria Iyawa, and Dr. Martin Uyapa. In Namibia, electronic policing has brought changes to the police organization, mainly recording, storing, and sharing of police information electronically for betterment of police service delivery. Electronic policing is abbreviated as e-policing, as broadly defined as combination of intelligent implementation of innovation in police technology while implementing the existing police intelligence-led policing, hotspot policing, problem-oriented policing, crime prevention, and crime investigation. The introduction of e-policing brought challenges such as underdeveloped ICT infrastructure, inadequate computer skills, financial constraints, poor internet access, and reliability that lead to poor case docket clearing and poor crime prevention. Over the years, technology has evolved and the advancements have benefited and shaped the police functions. The main objective is to examine the challenges and prospects of e-policing in Namibia, and we also do have 4 sub-objectives. 1, to access the current organization policy of e-policing system in Namibia, to investigate the challenges of implementing e-policing in Namibia, to investigate the factors necessary for the implementation of e-policing, and also to recommend best strategies that can be used for a successful implementation of e-policing in Namibia. To address the problem, we set out to investigate the leverage of technology to enhance effective e-policing in developing countries. The research approach that was used is a quantitative approach through open and closed-ended questionnaires that also carried out by gathering original data about people, their behaviors, experience, opinions, and awareness on the system. 62 officials were selected using a random sampling from the total of 82 police officers and 3 civilian components. Apart from the cross-ended questionnaires, books published in journals, theses, library studies, official government reports, and commission documents were used to collect the data. Despite the benefits of e-policing, the system implementation is still immature, and there is a major impact as majority of the officers are not computer literate. Thus lead to a problem of backlog of cases and data not being carried out properly. The major outcome in terms of data analysis was carried out, whereby 60 questionnaires were distributed and all were completed and returned, giving 100% response rate. The respondents' individualities that were examined are age, gender, level of education, and functions or unit where the respondents belong. This item thus helped to lay the structure and clarify the study's outcome. The first item on our data analysis was the benefit of e-policing, and this helped with effective updating of crime data to provide timeless information. As we can see in the diagram at 30%, the respondent felt that e-policing came with benefits such as improved crime rate accuracy and speed of case investigation, improved communication at the station, reduced crime investigation and response rate, improved enthusiasm to perform to duties, and advanced crime data gathering. But however, at a 70%, they disagree and felt that adoption of e-policing in the organization did not benefit and only added burdens to their work responsibilities. Challenges that were noted and seen were lack of specialized training. As we can see, at 40%, respondents noted that there are specialized training that really happened within the organization. And 10% are noted that they are not sure if there are such training that they need to go through. Another major challenge was weak cybercrime law. As we can see, at 80%, the respondents do not sure, or they are not sure if there are laws that are put in place to curb crime, cyber crimes. Another item that was analyzed is the study to attempt to find whether there was an appropriate policy that support the use of e-policing within the organization. As we can see in the figure, at 10%, a respondent noted that government offices, ministries, and agents' functions are accepted by the cabinet before they put into places or before they are being executed. However, at 90%, the respondent felt that if there is an organization policy in place, they do not know what entails or what does the policy says. On the effect of e-policing use of police performances, at 100%, a respondent indicated that the use of e-policing did not help in crime investigation, nor in prosecuting of criminal offenders. The technology has a major impact on criminal procedures to be followed when collecting and preserving digital evidence and presenting those digital evidence in court. Best strategies were put in places. There were some suggestions to find best strategies that are the best strategies to support the e-policing system implementation. The first being the allocation of adequate funds to advance the acquisition of equipment such as body cameras, license plate readers, CCTV cameras, and use of map-based apps that can alert police to hotspot crime scenes. And also there is a need for improved police training curriculum that has a basic digital forensic and also give awareness to respondents on current cyber securities. And another best strategy will be a well-trained personnel, as a well-trained personnel is a good asset to any organization. The results of the study were then, the study analyzed the demographic characteristic of police officers through educational background ranging from university and college graduates to grade 12 certificate holders. At very big numbers, the results find out that 90% of respondents do not know whether there is a policy governing the e-policing in Namibia. And if they do not, they know, they are not sure what is in that policy, what is the policy entails. At 70%, respondents indicated the lack of information technology knowledge, such as basic computer user skills that lead to neglect of duties of recording information on the system properly. There's also no proper law or bill adopted on how to gather and present digital forensic evidence at court. There is a need for enhancement of basic digital forensic knowledge in the development of the force. This should be done through training and awareness to police officers on current cyber crimes and use of e-policing system. This will benefit the government of Namibia to have efficient e-policing system with more suitable structure based on the best practice that deliver efficient, sufficient, and accurate information to other ministries. This can be done through allocation of adequate funds to the Namibian organization, to put laws also into places to support crime investigations and prosecute cyber criminals, and also support from higher ranks that is needed by the lower ranked officer to embrace the e-policing system. And also the training and development should restructure their training curriculum to include courses on cyber criminology and computer user skill for betterment of service delivery. In conclusion, an empirical analysis was conducted to demonstrate that it is feasible to adapt the e-policing in Namibia to ensure that the challenges of e-policing are unpacked and smoothened, not to prevent the system from being fully utilized and does not hinder the system to deliver quality services. These are the literatures that related to the study. Thanks very much, and I look forward to a fruitful interaction on this wonderful topic. I thank you.
Thanks very much, Esther. I think you're addressing a topic that's very important for many African countries. With the increased prevalence of cybercrime, ensuring that police forces have the necessary capacity and necessary specialist support is critical. Do you believe that this has been given sufficient priority? And what low-hanging fruit may exist that governments across Africa, not just in Namibia, should consider addressing first? Hi, Esther, I still see you as muted. Esther, you're still muted. We can't hear you. Okay, so while we're waiting for Esther to try to unmute herself, NJ, do you want to share your comment in relation to the work of Antec in Cameroon? Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead, NJ.
Okay, thanks. I just want to share our experience in Cameroon with regards to our collaboration with the law enforcement and the police. So, with regards to the law on cybersecurity and cyber criminality, my agency, which has the responsibility to secure the country's cyberspace, works directly with the police in terms of for digital or evidence or investigation, because in both the case with the capacity they have, the digital capacity, or let me say they don't have. Well, so what we do is that investigation, we work on one hand, we have direct collaboration with the police in terms of digital investigation. And again, courts, maybe for evidence, we also go through investigation, forensic exercise or process to come out with the digital evidence. So that is how it is happening in Cameroon. But then again, the good thing is that that is well stipulated in the law, cybersecurity and cyber criminality.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate that. Esther, can you unmute yourself now? No, unfortunately, it looks like Esther still has a problem with her mute. So there was a question then, while we're waiting for Esther, John, there was a question from Jay, if there was time, what is the government doing in building citizen trust in using e-services, knowing that cybersecurity is a challenge to all of our societies? So that's a question for John.
Thank you very much. That's a very important question. I think the government is doing a lot, and of course, I know that there are many regulations that are in place, either from the Central Bank of Kenya, if such involve financial transactions, and the need to report any breaches, I think within, I can't remember, but within a specific number of hours, so that that can be monitored. I'm also aware that the government of Kenya just recently in 2019 enacted the Data Protection Act, which stipulates how data about individuals should be handled either by data processors or data controllers. It is slowly taking effect. Many organizations are slowly developing their data protection policies just to be in line with the Data Protection Act. Earlier on in 2018, I think the government also enacted the Computer Abuse and Misuse Act, which also stipulates how to prevent some of this misuse of computer systems. So I think in terms of policy frameworks and legal frameworks, the government is doing a commendable job. I think we are also slowly seeing people appearing in court for various crimes involving computer misuse or even misuse of data. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. I appreciate it. Martin, are you able to answer that question on behalf of Esther, since Esther still can't seem to connect her sound? Okay, so then thank you all very much indeed for a very participatory session. We're going to move on after a short break to the second e-government session, so we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes. Gurmil Mocketh.